Dad's just getting forgetful. You know how it is at his age. My son Derek announced to the gathered family as he raised his beer, gesturing toward me sitting at the picnic table with an IV line running into my arm. I could barely lift my head. The 4th of July fireworks exploded over the lake behind us, but all I could focus on was not vomiting again. Probably got confused with his medications. Good thing Sarah's a nurse, right? Everyone nodded sympathetically. My daughter-in-law Sarah wouldn't meet my eyes as she adjusted the IV bag hanging from the pole Derek had rigged up on the deck. The paramedics had left 20 minutes ago, convinced it was just severe dehydration from the heat. But I knew better. I'd spent 40 years as a chemistry professor at Cornell before retiring. I knew exactly what was happening to my body, and it wasn't dehydration. 3 days earlier, I'd been perfectly fine. The invitation had come in May, Derek called, which was unusual in itself. My son and I had what you might call a cordial distance. We exchanged pleasantries on birthdays and holidays, but ever since my wife Patricia died 2 years ago, the calls had become even less frequent. So when he suggested a family reunion at the old lake house in the Finger Lakes for the 4th of July weekend, I was surprised. Touched, even. "Come on, Dad," Derek had said, his voice warm with an enthusiasm I hadn't heard since he was a kid. "It'll be great. Just family. Jake's been asking about you, wants to hear more of your stories." And I thought, we should spend more time together. Life's short. Life's short. If I'd been paying attention, I might have heard the threat hidden in those words. I'd driven up from my condo in Ithaca on Thursday afternoon, taking the scenic route around Cayuga Lake. The house sat on a quiet inlet of Seneca Lake, surrounded by dense woods. We'd bought it 30 years ago, when Derek was just a teenager. Patricia had loved it here. After she passed, I couldn't bring myself to visit, but I'd kept it in the family. Derek and Sarah used it occasionally, and I'd always told them it would be theirs someday. Someday. That word carries a lot of weight when you're in your late 60s. The house looked good when I pulled up. Fresh paint on the shutters. The dock recently repaired. Derek and Sarah were already there, along with their son Jake, my 10-year-old grandson. The boy ran out to help me with my bags, chattering excitedly about the fishing trip they had planned and the new pontoon boat his parents had bought. "Grandpa, Dad says you used to catch bass this big." Jake spread his arms wide, grinning. "Bigger," I said, ruffling his hair. "I'll teach you the secret spots this weekend." Derek appeared on the porch, wiping his hands on a dish towel. At 42, my son still had the athletic build from his college baseball days, though his hairline had started to recede. He wore an apron that said "Grill Master" and gave me one of those half-hugs men give each other, patting my back twice. "Good to see you, Dad. Sarah's making her famous potato salad. I'm handling the steaks tonight. Hope you brought your appetite." I had. God help me, I had. That first dinner was perfect. Derek grilled ribeyes to perfection, and Sarah's potato salad was indeed excellent. We ate on the deck overlooking the water, watching the sun set over the lake. Jake told me about his Little League team. Sarah shared funny stories from the hospital where she worked, and Derek seemed more relaxed than I'd seen him in years. "This is nice," I said, leaning back in my chair. "We should do this more often." "Absolutely," Derek agreed, refilling my wine glass. "To family." We clinked glasses. I should have noticed how he watched me drink, the way his eyes followed the glass to my lips. But I was too caught up in the moment, too grateful for what felt like my family coming back together after Patricia's death had scattered us. I woke up at 3 in the morning with violent nausea. I barely made it to the bathroom before I started vomiting. It came in waves, my body trying to purge itself of something it recognized as poison. Between heaves, my mind raced through possibilities. Food poisoning? But Derek and Sarah had eaten the same meal. A stomach bug? Possible. But the onset was too sudden, too severe. When I finally stumbled back to bed, weak and shaking, I noticed the water glass on my nightstand was empty. I'd filled it before bed, I was certain. Had I drunk it during the night without remembering? The fog in my head made it hard to think clearly. The next morning, Derek was all concern. "Dad, you look terrible. What happened?" Got sick in the night, I managed. Must have been something I ate. That's weird. Sarah and I feel fine. Maybe it was the drive up? Sometimes the winding roads can do that. He pressed a hand to my forehead. You're a little warm. Why don't you rest today? We can fish tomorrow when you're feeling better. It made sense. I went back to bed, grateful when Sarah brought me toast and ginger ale. For your stomach, she said softly, setting the tray on the nightstand. Derek feels terrible that you got sick. I nibbled the toast. It stayed down. By afternoon, I felt almost human again. The brain fog had lifted enough for me to think more clearly. 40 years of teaching organic chemistry had trained my mind to look for patterns, to question assumptions. One episode of illness could be coincidence, but something nagged at me. That evening, Derek insisted I shouldn't miss his world-famous BBQ ribs. I've been marinating them for 2 days, Dad. You've got to at least try them. I did. They were delicious. So was the corn on the cob, the coleslaw, the homemade lemonade Derek kept refilling in my glass. Drink up, he said, pouring me another glass. It's hot. Got to stay hydrated. The lemonade was sweet, tangy, perfect for a summer evening. I drank 3 glasses. At 2 a.m., I was back in the bathroom, my body convulsing with the effort to expel whatever was poisoning it. This time, lying on the cool tile floor between bouts of vomiting, my chemist's brain kicked into gear. 2 episodes. Same time frame after eating, same severity. Both times after Derek had served me drinks. The lemonade. Something in the lemonade. When you've spent 4 decades teaching students about reaction mechanisms and molecular structures, certain things become second nature. The symptoms I was experiencing, the timing, the severity, all pointed to something specific. And the fact that it was happening after consuming beverages Derek had personally served me, beverages no one else had drunk from, was too precise to be coincidence. Ethylene glycol, antifreeze, sweet tasting, hard to detect in sweet drinks, causes severe nausea, vomiting, metabolic acidosis. In small doses, repeated over time, it would look like a series of illnesses, eventually leading to kidney failure, coma, death. And in a man my age, with no history of suspicious circumstances, it would probably be ruled natural causes. I lay there on the bathroom floor, the cool tile against my cheek, and felt my world reorganize itself around this terrible knowledge. My son was trying to kill me. The logical part of my brain immediately started asking why. The emotional part didn't want to know, but I forced myself to think it through. Motive. Derek had motive. The lake house alone was worth close to $800,000. My life insurance policy, the one Patricia and I had taken out 30 years ago, was for $500,000. The condo, my retirement accounts, my late wife's jewelry collection, all told, Derek stood to inherit close to $2 million. 2 million reasons to poison your father. I must have made some sound, because I heard footsteps in the hallway. Derek's voice came through the door. Dad, you okay in there? I forced my voice to work. Just sick again. Same as last night. Oh man, that's awful. Want me to call a doctor? Did I? If I went to the hospital, they'd run tests. They'd find the ethylene glycol in my system. They'd ask questions. Derek would be arrested. Sarah would claim ignorance. Jake would lose both parents. Or Derek would talk his way out of it, claim I must have accidentally ingested antifreeze. Old man, confused, probably drank from the wrong container in the garage. These things happen. No, I called back. I'll be okay. Probably just a bug. You sure? Sarah could take a look at you. She's a nurse. Sarah. Was she in on it? I thought about the way she wouldn't meet my eyes at dinner, the way her hands had shaken slightly when she'd served the lemonade. She knew. Maybe she hadn't wanted this. Maybe Derek had convinced her somehow. But she knew. I'm sure. Just need rest. I heard him walk away. When I was certain he was gone, I dragged myself up and looked at my reflection in the mirror. Pale, drawn, eyes bloodshot from vomiting. I looked like a man who was dying, which, I supposed, I was. But I wasn't going to make it easy. The next morning, Saturday, I pretended to feel better. Not too much better, just enough that it wouldn't seem suspicious if I wanted to move around a bit. I made a show of coming downstairs for breakfast, accepting the coffee Derek offered, but accidentally knocking over the cup before I drank any. "Sorry, clumsy this morning," I said, mopping up the spill. "No problem, I'll get you more." Derek moved toward the coffee pot. "Actually, I think I'll skip it. Stomach's still a little sensitive. Maybe just some dry toast?" I saw the flash of frustration in his eyes before he masked it with concern. He needed me to ingest the poison. Every day I didn't was another day he had to maintain this charade, another day risking discovery. While they were distracted with cleaning up the coffee, I pocketed one of Sarah's pill bottles from her purse hanging on the chair. I'd need a container to collect a sample later. That afternoon, I told them I was feeling well enough for a short walk, just around the property. Fresh air might help. "Want company?" Derek asked, too quickly. No, I'll just take it slow. You all enjoy the lake." What I really needed was privacy and a chance to think. The nearest neighbor was Mrs. Chen, an elderly widow who lived about a quarter-mile through the woods. Patricia and I had been friendly with her years ago. I made my way there, moving slowly to preserve my strength. Mrs. Chen was delighted to see me, though concerned by my appearance. "Thomas! How wonderful! But you look unwell." "Touch of a stomach bug," I said. "Listen, Helen, I need a favor, a strange one." I'd known Helen Chen for 20 years. She'd been a chemistry teacher herself before retiring. I knew I could trust her, and more importantly, I knew she'd understand what I was about to ask. "I need you to call the police if you don't hear from me by Monday morning. And I need to use your phone to make a recording." Her expression shifted from concern to alarm. "Thomas, what's happening?" "I can't explain everything now, but I will, Monday, if I can." She studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. "Come inside." I used her phone to record a video. 13 minutes of me explaining everything, showing my symptoms, describing the timing of my illnesses, detailing my suspicions about the ethylene glycol. I named Derek and Sarah. I explained about the inheritance. I made sure to note that I was of sound mind, that this wasn't the confused rambling of a sick old man, but the reasoned conclusion of a scientist who'd taught toxicology for 40 years. "If you're watching this," I concluded, "it means I didn't make it to Monday, or I couldn't call. Please give this to the police. Test my body for ethylene glycol poisoning. And please, make sure my grandson Jake is taken care of. He's innocent in all this." Helen's hands were shaking when I finished. "Thomas, you need to leave. Right now. Come stay with me." "I can't. If I disappear, Derek might panic, might run. I need evidence. Solid evidence. The recording is insurance, but I need proof he's actively trying to poison me. I need to catch him in the act. This is insane. This is murder, and I'm going to make sure he pays for it." I walked back to the lake house, my legs shaky but my resolve firm. The fireworks display was planned for tomorrow night, 4th of July. The whole point of this reunion, Derek had probably intended for me to be much sicker by then, maybe even dead. He'd miscalculated my tolerance, or perhaps he was stretching it out to avoid suspicion. Either way, I had until tomorrow night. That evening, Derek grilled burgers. I ate the burger, but avoided all the drinks he offered, claiming my stomach couldn't handle anything but water. I watched him grow increasingly frustrated as I drank only from the bottles I opened myself, keeping them with me at all times. "Dad, you're being weird about the drinks," Derek finally said, his tone just slightly too sharp. "Am I? Sorry. Just being cautious after being so sick. You think we're trying to poison you or something?" He laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Don't be ridiculous." I met his gaze steadily. "You're my son." That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my room with the door locked, listening to the old house creak and settle. Around midnight, I heard footsteps in the hallway. They stopped outside my door. The handle turned slowly, testing, locked. The footsteps retreated. He'd been coming to check if I was dead. Sunday morning, July 4th, the day of the big family BBQ and fireworks display. Derek had invited neighbors, some of his friends from Syracuse. There would be witnesses to see me getting sicker, witnesses to see how devoted my son was, trying to care for his ailing father. I came downstairs to find Derek already at the grill, prepping for the afternoon cookout. Sarah was in the kitchen making her famous potato salad. Jake was on the dock, fishing. "Morning, Dad. Feeling better?" Derek's smile was wide, but his eyes were calculating. He'd realized he was running out of time. "Much better, actually. Think I'm finally over whatever bug that was." I saw his jaw tighten. "That's great. Really great. Hey, I made fresh lemonade. Your favorite." There it was. The pitcher sat on the counter, condensation beating on the glass. My favorite. He was going to make one last concentrated attempt. "Thanks, but I think I'll stick with water for now. Ease back into things. Dad." His voice had an edge now. "One glass of lemonade isn't going to kill you." The words hung in the air between us. Sarah dropped something in the kitchen. Jake, thankfully, was too far away to hear. "You're right," I said calmly. "One glass won't kill me." I watched him pour it, his hands steady, practiced. This wasn't his first time adding something to a drink. I wondered how many times he'd done it over the past 3 days, how much poison was in my system already. He handed me the glass. I took it, held it, didn't drink. "What's wrong?" Derek asked. "Nothing. Just savoring the moment. Family together. Good times." "Drink up, Dad. You look dehydrated." I brought the glass to my lips, tipped it slightly, let him see a small amount go into my mouth. Then, when he turned to grab something from the grill, I poured most of it into the pill bottle I'd palmed, quickly capping it and slipping it back into my pocket. I set the nearly empty glass down. "Delicious," I said. His shoulders relaxed slightly. He'd seen me drink, or thought he had. Over the next hour, I made a show of feeling worse. Sat down heavily. Complained of dizziness. Right on schedule. The symptoms of acute ethylene glycol poisoning. Except this time, I was faking most of it. The small amount I'd actually ingested would cause some symptoms, but I'd kept most of the dose in the bottle. Evidence. By noon, guests were arriving. Derek's college friend Mark, a couple of neighbors, Sarah's sister Beth, the deck filled with people, music playing, the smell of grilling meat hanging in the summer air. That's when I started vomiting again. Violently, publicly. On the deck, in front of everyone. Sarah ran to me, her nurse training kicking in even as guilt flickered across her face. "Thomas! Oh my God! Derek! Call 911. "Already on it," Derek said, phone to his ear, playing the concerned son perfectly. The paramedics arrived within 20 minutes. I was conscious enough to refuse hospital transport. "Just dehydration," I insisted. "Happens at my age in the heat. I'll be fine with some fluids." Sarah, the nurse, backed me up. "I can monitor him here, set up an IV. If he gets worse, we'll take him in." The paramedics were reluctant but agreed. Sarah started the IV while Derek explained to the concerned guests that I'd been fighting a stomach bug all weekend. Probably should have stayed home, but didn't want to miss the reunion. So there I sat at the picnic table, IV in my arm, while Derek made his announcement about my forgetfulness in age and confusion with medications, playing his role, setting up the narrative for when I finally died, and they ruled it natural causes or accidental poisoning by a confused old man. But here's what Derek didn't know. Hidden in my room was Jake's Nintendo Switch, which I'd borrowed that morning claiming I wanted to learn how to play his games. It had been recording everything from the bookshelf with a clear view of the kitchen. Every pour, every drink Derek had prepared, every moment when he'd been alone with the lemonade pitcher. In my pocket was the pill bottle with most of today's poison dose, ready to be tested. In Mrs. Chen's safe was my video testimony. And in my other pocket was my phone, which I'd used to photograph the antifreeze container I'd found hidden behind paint cans in the garage, its level significantly lower than the dust pattern indicated it should be. I'd spent 40 years teaching students that science requires evidence, observation, documentation. Derek had underestimated what a lifetime of scientific training could do when applied to staying alive. The fireworks started at 9 p.m. Everyone oohed and ahed as explosions of color lit up the night sky over the lake. I sat in my deck chair, IV still running, watching my son watch me, waiting for me to die. Instead, I pulled out my phone. "Derek," I called over the noise of fireworks. "Come here for a second." He approached, concerned son mask firmly in place. "What's up, Dad? Need more fluids?" "No. I need you to watch something." I turned the phone screen toward him. On it, video from Jake's switch showed Derek, crystal clear, pouring something from a small bottle into the lemonade pitcher that morning. The timestamp was clearly visible. His face went white, actually white, like all the blood had drained out of it. "That's... Dad, I can explain." "Can you? Because I'd love to hear how you explain adding ethylene glycol to my drinks for 3 days straight." My voice was loud enough now that people were turning to look. "I'd love to hear how you explain trying to murder your father for his life insurance." Sarah made a small sound. Beth gasped. Mark's mouth fell open. Derek's hands started to shake. "You're confused. The illness, the medications. You're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking very clearly. More clearly than I have in years, actually. Funny how survival focuses the mind." I stood up, pulling the IV line out myself. Sarah flinched, but didn't move to stop me. "I'm a chemist, Derek. Did you really think I wouldn't recognize the symptoms? The timing? The taste? Even masked in lemonade?" I pulled the pill bottle from my pocket, held it up. "This is from this morning. Your final dose, I'm guessing. Strong enough to finish the job before witnesses. The lab will confirm what's in it." "Dad, please!" Derek's voice cracked. "I recorded a video testimony. It's safe with Mrs. Chen. I've documented everything. I have photographs of the antifreeze container in the garage, measuring the amount you used. I have this video of you preparing the poison drink, and I have Sarah's guilt written all over her face." Sarah broke. She actually sobbed. "I didn't want to. Derek said we were desperate. The medical bills for Jake's surgery last year, the debt. I didn't want to, Thomas. I'm so sorry." So that was it. Money. Always money. Jake had needed surgery. They'd gone into debt. And rather than ask me for help, like any normal family would, Derek had decided murder was the easier option. "The surgery that I would have paid for in a heartbeat if you'd just asked me," I said quietly. "The debt I would have helped with because you're my son and Jake is my grandson?" Derek's face crumpled. Whether from genuine remorse or just getting caught, I couldn't tell. The fireworks were still going off, red and blue and gold against the night sky, as Mark pulled out his phone and called the police. As Beth wrapped her arms around Jake, who'd come running at the commotion, confused and scared, as Sarah sank into a chair and put her face in her hands. As Derek looked at me with something I couldn't quite name, hatred, regret, fear. "I never forgot my medications," I said to him as sirens began to wail in the distance. "I never got confused. I never got old and useless and easy to kill. You underestimated me. That was your mistake." The police arrived 13 minutes later. I gave them the phone with the video, the pill bottle with the poisoned lemonade, the photographs of the antifreeze container. I told them about Mrs. Chen's video testimony. I showed them my symptoms, explained the chemical process of ethylene glycol poisoning with the precision of someone who'd taught it to thousands of students. They arrested Derek and Sarah. Read them their rights while confused neighbors watched and Jake cried against his aunt's shoulder. As they put Derek in the patrol car, he looked at me through the window, mouthed something that might have been, "I'm sorry," or might have been, "I hate you." I couldn't tell, didn't care. I spent that night in the hospital, being treated for ethylene glycol poisoning. My kidneys would recover. The doctors said I'd been lucky, that if I'd consumed even one more full dose, the damage might have been irreversible. Luck had nothing to do with it. Knowledge did. Observation. Evidence. The scientific method applied to survival. The case was straightforward. Derek's lawyer tried to claim I was a bitter old man, confused and vengeful, but the evidence was overwhelming. The video, the lab tests confirming ethylene glycol in both my system and the lemonade sample. Sarah's confession. The financial records showing their debt and my life insurance policy. Derek got 15 years for attempted murder. Sarah, who cooperated fully and showed genuine remorse, got 7 with the possibility of parole in 4. The prosecutor wanted to charge them with conspiracy, insurance fraud, elder abuse. The list went on. I sold the lake house. Couldn't bear to keep it after everything that had happened there. The place Patricia had loved was now the place our son had tried to kill me. Some stains don't wash out, no matter how much you scrub. Jake went to live with Beth and her husband. I set up a trust fund for his education, his future. None of this was his fault. He shouldn't suffer for his parents' choices. We have lunch once a month now, Jake and me. He's in therapy, working through the trauma of watching his parents get arrested. He doesn't ask me about what happened that weekend, doesn't ask why his father did what he did. Maybe someday he will, when he's older. For now, we just eat pizza, and I help him with his homework, and pretend that families don't sometimes try to murder each other for money. 3 months after the arrest, I got a letter from Derek in prison. I almost threw it away without reading it. Almost. But 40 years of scientific training taught me not to ignore data, even uncomfortable data. The letter was 4 pages long, handwritten. He explained about the debt, the desperation, the way it had started as just a thought, a dark thought he'd never act on, until Sarah got diagnosed with early-stage breast cancer, and they'd maxed out their insurance, and he'd felt trapped and scared, and he'd remembered the life insurance policy, and he'd just thought, what if? What if the old man just died? Natural causes, heart attack, stroke, something age-related. What if? And then it had become a plan, and the plan had become action, and action had become attempted murder. He wrote that he was sorry, that he understood if I never forgave him, that he hoped Jake would be okay, that he'd loved me once, before the money troubles, before the fear, before he'd become someone who could look his father in the eye while serving him poison. I wrote back, 1 sentence. I hope you find peace, but I won't be there to witness it. I haven't heard from him since. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm back in that bathroom, lying on the tile floor, my body trying to purge the poison my own son had given me. Sometimes I dream I drank the whole glass of lemonade that last morning, and I died on that deck with fireworks exploding overhead, and guests watching, and Derek playing the grieving son. But then I wake up and I'm alive, in my condo in Ithaca, with coffee brewing and the morning paper waiting, and another day stretching ahead of me. Days Derek tried to steal. I'm 70 now. Retired from teaching, but not from living. I volunteer at the local science museum, mentoring kids who want to be chemists. I take walks around the lake. I read. I remember Patricia. The good years we had, before cancer took her, before grief drove a wedge between Derek and me that eventually became a chasm he tried to fill with my death. People sometimes ask if I regret exposing Derek, turning my own son in to the police. They expect me to be torn up about it, to second-guess my decision. I don't. He made his choice when he poured that first dose of poison into my drink. I made mine when I refused to die quietly to make his inheritance easier. Life is precious. Patricia taught me that in the way she fought to the end, squeezing every moment out of the time she had left. Derek forgot that. Or maybe he never learned it. But I remember. Every morning when I wake up and the sun is rising over Cayuga Lake, and I'm still breathing, and my kidneys still work, and my mind is still sharp, I remember. I won. The old man won. Not through strength or luck, but through knowledge, through observation, through the same scientific principles I'd spent a lifetime teaching others. Derek was right about one thing in his speech that 4th of July night. Somebody did learn a lesson. It just wasn't me.